Good morning, everybody. Glad you could all join me today. Today we're going to be doing a buyer transaction, right? What's the process for working with a buyer? Whether it be from command, whether it be with your buyer appointment, we're going to work through that whole process today. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So, as you guys all know, all your transactions are going to be started here on your opportunities page on command. So we learned about listings yesterday, well, the day before, I should say, um, and how that process works. So today we're going to do the same thing for the buyers, right? So we're going to start here. Well, we're going to start at creating an opportunity, right? We're going to get our buyer's name, which we'll just use me. Any co-buyers, you want to put their information in there. You want to make sure that you always go to opportunity type and click which one that you're using it for. So we're going to go with buyer. You can add any custom tags that you wanted to add, but you don't really need to. It's no deal for it. No big deal. We're going to put our commission rate again. So let's say we saw the listing and it says 2.5%. Right? We're going to put that there. The opportunity phase that we're going to be in. So let's say we're just in appointments, right? We're scheduling. And we're going to create. Okay, so now we have our opportunity created. We're going to go back to our pipeline and we're just going to see where we are in the process with our buyer, right? Are we still watching this buyer, nurturing this buyer, or are they hot buyer, right? So this is one of my buyers. Or did we schedule an appointment, right? Do we have a buyer consultation that we're going to? So let's say we do. So we scheduled that, right? We scheduled it. They kept it, right? They kept it. Now we're going active, right? So now we're going active. So now we're searching, right? I'm searching. I'm sending them houses, right? I'm sending them stuff to look for. And we're working. Now we're going on showings, right? The searching is still ongoing, but now we're showing homes, right? And then we're going to get into um our negotiations, right? We're talking about getting under contract. We're talking about if they like the house. We're talking about everything that's going to happen for the process. So we're telling them about the home inspection price. We're telling them how much the lawyer is going to cost. We're going to give them an estimate. What closing costs. So typically, closing costs can anywhere between 12,000 to 15,000, typically. So we're going to let them know that. So this is just us going through the process with them on negotiating on what house they want to put an offer in, right? Out of all the homes that you've showed them, after you sent them everything, after you went on the showings, which house do they want to put an offer in? So these are those negotiations. Legacy, I'm not too familiar with, so I'm not going to even try to attempt. So we're going to move on from there. And then we get into, well, let me go back so we can move it. So let's go under contract, right? Now we're under contract. So escrow is when they're going to put in their deposit, right? If they have an earnest money deposit, which most people don't do nowadays, they just do the additional deposit, which is their down payment on their mortgage. Most times you won't really run into the $5,000 earnest money situation. That typically doesn't really happen too much anymore. It's all about the offer price and the down payment for the mortgage. So once we get out of escrow, we get into inspections, which is just our home inspection. We're going to get those reports back. We're going to see how that works out. And this is going to be the negotiations after attorney review is over with. These attorney review is 3 days long. So then the home inspection and the negotiations for that stuff start after all of that. So you'll be negotiating on, let's say the home inspection comes back and it reveals that it has, a bunch of different repairs and things like that that the home needs. So the buyer can can decide to do two things. He can either say that I want the seller to fix them, or he can suggest that the seller just give me a credit and I'll fix them as long as they're willing to pay for it, right? So this can go either way. There's going to be negotiations. Most of your negotiations are going to be related to the home inspection, right? It's going to be whatever the home inspection reveals. And we're going to take those negotiations and we're going to try to keep the deal together, because that's usually the time where emotions start to run high, and because the seller doesn't want to give and the buyer doesn't want to give. So it can put us at a crossroads. So we're here to keep our buyers at ease, to keep our sellers at ease, and work closely with the listing agent so that we're both on the same page. So we're not feuding over the same thing that our clients are feuding over, because we're not in the drama. We're just here for the transaction, right? We have to stay above what's going on with our clients and remain professional and just work together between ourselves and the listing agent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So after we do inspections, we're going to get into appraisal. So appraisal is usually done by the buyer's mortgage lender or bank, whichever one that they're using. And the appraisal is important because it's going to give us a true value of what the home is actually worth. So let's say, for example, the purchase price is $350,000, right? But the appraisal comes back and says that the house is only worth $315,000. Can anyone tell me what happens when that happens? If you know.
The lender only approves for that amount of the loan.
Very true. Very true. So now your lender, so now we have to renegotiate the price. Now we have to start, now we go all the way back to here again. Now we're back in negotiations because that contract is null and void now because the price is different. So now we're back to talking to our buyer about the purchase price, right? Because it's not the buyer that is taking a hit now. Now the seller's taking a hit. So we're going to negotiate with our buyer. Okay, how much are you willing to still pay, right? But we're also going to be negotiating between the listing agent as well, because we have to make sure that we're still that it's still a fair deal on both sides, right? So if it comes back and says that the house is only worth $315, your lender is only going to give you max $320, right? So you can then negotiate and say, okay, well, being that the seller took a hit, we're willing to still pay the extra $5,000 and give you $320 for the house. Because they can also go back and just rescind the whole deal, go with another buyer and see what that appraisal does. Because every appraiser is going to appraise your house differently. They're not going to appraise the same. They use different comps, right? It's the same. An appraiser does the same thing we do when we do a CMA, right? We have our subject property, right? And then we want to find other properties that look just like that property, right? And we're going to see what they sold for, what the asking price was versus what it sold for, and then we're going to make our price for our home around that same purchase price. So an appraiser is doing the exact same thing, right? They're looking at comps, they're looking at what sold, they're looking at the homes that were similar to the subject property, and they're going to make their judgment based off of that. So it's the same exact thing. So you may have an appraiser that just is using bad comps, right? Maybe his comps are bad. I have appraisers call me for listings that I worked on that ask me, what did it sell for and things like that. So they're still working the same way we work, basically. So they are subject to error. And that's okay because, this is human error, right? So it's all based off their own judgment and what they think the house value actually is based on what the homes in that area were selling for. We all got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have a question.
Go ahead.
What happens when the house sells for overpriced, like when the seller is asking for more money? Is it out of pocket, or does it does it get approved in loan amount?
So, oh, you said, oh, if the appraisal comes back higher?
No, so the appraisal is at the price, but when the house is sold for overpriced, like when they're
Right.
over asking. So the over asked money, is it out of pocket?
Yes. So the over asking money, right? That when you see these people going in and going 50,000, 60,000, 30,000, whatever it is above asking, typically that's out of their own pockets because your mortgage lender is not going to pay 50,000 above asking for a house that doesn't appraise. So the only way that would work out, right? So let's say the house is 350,000, right? And you put in an offer at 400,000. The appraisal comes back and says the house is worth 405. Your lender is going to approve that, right? If it doesn't, let's say the appraisal comes back and says the house is only worth, you put in 400, the house is only worth 385. Your lender is only going to put 385, and then you'll have to come up with the 15,000. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, most of the time the out of the above asking price is comes out of their pocket. So be careful when you're working with the buyer and they say that they want to go above asking. They have to show you proof of funds. That's very, very important because their lender more than likely is not going to pay that. Most deals have been falling apart with these over asking prices because the lenders are like, I'm not paying that. So you have to be careful, even when you're on a listing side and you see a deal for 50,000, 100,000 above asking, you want to make sure you ask that buyer's agent for proof of funds because you have to make sure they have the money. If they don't have the money, then you can't accept the offer, right? Because where are they getting the money from? Cool.
Yes.
Okay. So after we get into after we're done with the appraisal and it comes back great, then we get into financing. Financing is going to be where the mortgage gets approved, um, where negotiations are starting to settle down and die down. We're kind of in the last few weeks of the transaction, where we're just going back through and the title company is going to start doing their thing and going through and make sure the title is clear, making sure the deed is clear, there are no liens on the property, and things like that, so that we can be clear to close in a timely manner. So this usually typically takes about, I'd say about 3 or 4 days, between getting all through the financing and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. And then we will be clear to close. The buyer transaction, as you can see, is a little bit shorter than it would be for a listing. So the longest thing you're going to deal with a buyer is finding them a house. Is this part? The searching. This is what's going to take you the longest amount of time to do because your buyers are looking for whatever they're looking for and you have to find it. It's like a needle in a haystack. So you're going to be sending them properties, you're going to be taking them on showings, sending them properties, taking them on showings, sending them on properties, taking them on showings. You're going to keep going back and forth until you find the house and then you start negotiating. Then you put together the offer. So typically this can take you anywhere from a month, maybe from a month to 6 months. It could take you a year. It could take you 2 years. It just depends on what your buyer is looking for. And if it's on market right now, the inventory is 34% lower than it was last year. So think about that in terms of what your buyer is looking for. They have a 34% less chance of finding the house that they're looking for now. Right? So we have to go a lot harder. We have to go search a lot deeper for homes that may be out of their area, for homes that may be a little out of their a little at the top of their budget because we can't exceed their budget. So you have to find different ways. You have to constantly be on it, especially in this market where homes are selling in a day, right? We have to make sure our buyers know about those homes, right? Every home, don't pick and choose what you think your buyer is going to like, and then leave other homes out. Just send them everything and let them choose. Let them tell you what home they like or what home they don't like. Don't take your own personal judgments after being out with them and say, oh, well, I know she doesn't like carpeted floors. Oh, I know that he doesn't like he wants finished bathrooms. You know that she wants an attic with space. You know, she wants a den, 2-car garage, things like that, right? We're going to find those specifics, but then we also want to send them the other homes that have other stuff as well, that may have hardwood floors and maybe only have a 1-car garage that has a back deck instead of a finished basement, that has a pool and things like that. We want to send them everything and let them choose. Everyone got that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you don't want to be the person that gets the call that goes, oh, I saw this home that went under contract. You never showed that one to me. And that's one I would have liked. It's the worst feeling. It's happened to me. Don't do it. Don't do it. Send them everything, okay? Just keeps you out of the clear, right? You don't want to feel that backlash. So after we, so now let's get into, where am I? Here I am. So we did the process. Now let's get into the important part, which is the paperwork. So we are going to start a transaction. Log into our DocuSign account. And we have our room already set up with the name and the buyer, making sure that's all good. So now we're going to add our documents. DocuSign forms. We're going to go up to sales documents because, like I said, DocuSign makes it easy for you, whether you need a listing, a rental, or anything. It puts it all right here for you, so you don't have to do all the extra searching. So we're going to go down here. We're going to need contract of sale, right? Typically, right, most people don't use an exclusive buyer agency agreement. Most people just trust that their buyer is going to stick by them during the entire process. But remember, being that your buyer isn't under contract, they can leave you at any given time. So use this at your own, use this at your own discretion, okay? So if you have someone that, you know, you may not know them too well. I mean, you can even use this. I mean, I've been burned by family, okay? So you want to use this when you just, I would say use this overall. Just use it because it just binds you into an agency agreement where this buyer is saying, I really want you to be my agent. I want to work with only you. And that's the type of loyalty you want when working with a buyer, because like I said, they can drop you, go to an open house and work with that listing agent and just go directly to the source, right? Because in some instances, they feel like they don't need us. They feel like they can
Lawrence,
negotiate on their own. Go ahead.
I think even if you use that, I think they can still drop you, right?
Well, yeah, they
If
can
they
void.
want to.
Well, they can void. So the thing about it is with this contract, it makes it so they can only void it for certain reasons, right? They can only void this contract if you weren't performing, right? Let's say performance issues, let's say relationship issues, like they just don't feel you, right? It could be communication issues, right? It could be a few different things that they can drop you for, but at least if they sign it, right? They have this feeling of knowing, and you have the feeling of knowing that you're exclusive, right? That they're working solely with you and not another agent. Because with this contract, they're not allowed to, because they signed an exclusive buyer agency agreement.
So it's just going to be for that contract only. But apart from that contract, they can, if that contract falls apart, they can still go somewhere else, right?
No, if this is for the time that you're working with them. So you're going to put a date on this. It's the same thing as like an exclusive listing agreement, right? That I said a listing agreement should be signed for at least 6 months, right? you can have them sign an exclusive buyer agency agreement for the same amount of time where they can't drop you unless, like I said, unless there are performance related relationship and things like that.
Yeah,
If
but
there's
what
something that you're doing wrong or they feel like they don't feel you're doing a good enough job, they can totally drop you.
Yeah, but what happens if they drop you and they sign this thing? What do you do? You can't do nothing,
Say
right?
that again.
I said, if they sign this agreement and eventually they drop you, what can you do?
You can't do anything. I mean, but
Exactly.
so the thing about, like I said, the thing about this agreement, it just helps with their loyalty to you as a customer, as your client. That's all it does. This
Yeah,
isn't some.
because the reason why I'm saying that I've had a customer, my first listing, my first transaction, he dropped it. I put that in, made him sign it, and eventually dropped me. And I realized that there's nothing I can do. So I stopped using it because it doesn't make any sense if they drop you and there's nothing you can do. I understand what you're saying. It's the feelings, that they are attached to you. I understand. But if they eventually drop you, there's nothing you can really do.
No, there's nothing you can do. If I mean, somebody can drop you from a listing agreement. It's the same thing. They can say, I don't
Yeah.
like this agent, and they can drop you from that as well. It works on both sides, right? So
Yeah.
what all this does is it just gives you a little bit more comfort to know that your buyer is going to be in some form loyal to you as their agent, right? This is just a protection for you for your client, right? To say that they can't just go run off with another agent that they met tomorrow for any reason. That's
Yeah.
all this says,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
just
most
personal.
so
I recently I referred someone to another agent in our office, and the first thing they made him do was to sign this thing, and he didn't really like it. He did not like it that she made him sign this. That was the first thing, she did. So that's why I don't really do it
so the
anymore.
thing so the thing about this is not something you're forcing anyone to sign. You don't have to make them sign this. This
Okay.
is just an option for them to sign, right? This is
Yeah.
something that goes along with your CIS. This is when you would
Yeah.
present this. When you present
Okay.
your CIS. And
Yes.
you would say to them, this is just another form of expressing our exclusive buyer agency relationship. That's all this is. Because
Yeah.
most people look at it as signing the contract, which binds you like, oh, I'm just stuck with you, right? Even if you do a terrible job, I'm stuck with you. So you have to word it in a way that explains to them that this is not what that is. This is not what that is. This is
Okay.
just another form of a CIS, basically. This is just confirming my exclusive agency to represent you in this transaction as a buyer's agent. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So this isn't something that, like I said, most agents don't use this at all, right? This is not it's not a requirement for you to do this, for you to have them sign an exclusive buyer agency agreement. It's not a requirement. It's not something you have to do in order to push along the transaction, but it is a helpful tool if you want to be exclusive with your buyer, if you want to create that relationship contractually beside the CIS. Because the CIS is just informing them of your business relationship. This solidifies it, right? That's just informed. This makes it like binding when you would use this agreement, because they're agreeing that you're their buyer's agent, basically. That's all it is. So you can use it or you cannot use it. It depends on how you would want to use it. But like I said, it's just another backup to the CIS form, which is down here. So let's get right into it. So wait for our form to load. Okay, so this is our offer, basically. You know, when people tell you like you want to put an offer in, this is what you're going to put. This is the offer. This is what that is. Your contract of sale. This is the offer, right? All of this. It's a lot. So let's start at the top. So as a real estate broker, I represent, which one should I click up here? Who am I representing?
Buyer.
The buyer, right? Buyer, not the seller, right? Then we're going to read through all this stuff. It says it's the contract becomes final and binding unless your lawyer cancels it within the following 3 business days, which means that this contract is binding up until returning review, right? Because the lawyer can rescind this and say that, you know, I don't like this contract. They're not agreeing to our terms, and they can cancel the contract, and we have to start all over again. It's very, very difficult. The other thing I want you guys to do is when you go into your DocuSign, read these contracts. You need to know exactly what everything says on every page and every line. You need to understand what it is, because this way, if your buyers ask you a question about one of these lines in here, you know how to answer it. And you also are more familiar with the wording on the contracts. So you have to go down, you want to scroll and read everything on each of the contracts that we use. You should know them. It's very important. So once we establish who we are, we're representing the buyer, not the seller. You're gonna put your buyer's information here, date, right? And this is where they're gonna sign it, right? They're gonna sign all this stuff. You're gonna put your name here because this is prepared by you. So this is prepared by me. You have to know who it's prepared by. Okay, down here, it's gonna automatically populate who your buyer is. You can put their address in. And you're agreeing to purchase from the sellers. But you wouldn't put this information in because you don't know the seller's names, right? That's for the listing agent to do when they send this through DocuSign and send it to their sellers to sign. They're also going to put their address in this here. You don't know the address, but you do know the property address. So let's say it's 123 ABC Street, right? In Princeton, New Jersey. Right, shown on a municipal tax map of Princeton Township, right, in the county of Mercer. And then you're going to look for, under the MLS, you're going to see a block number and a lot number. Make sure you fill those in. It says optional, but do it, because it just it concretes home the actual address, right? You know, the block number, the lot number. This is the property that we're using. So that's a important thing to put there as well. So purchase price. So let's say the house is 350,000, right? Your initial deposit, this used to be your earnest money. We don't do that anymore, right? So we're just going to do an additional deposit, which is whatever my down payment is for my mortgage, right? Whatever the pre-approval that you get from your buyer is going to have a down payment on there. That is the additional deposit. And that's what you're going to put in this field here. So let's say it's 10,000, right? And so my down payment is 10,000, right? So that means my mortgage
If there was a initial deposit, when would that be paid typically?
that would be typically that's paid at the top of attorney review. Like once you secure an attorney, right? And you find you put in an offer, the offer gets accepted, then you would give earnest money to your attorney. The earnest money, the 5,000, was used for like basically like getting your offer accepted and binding the contract so that we can start the process and let you know I was serious about buying the property. So the 5,000 also would be if, let's say, if I, the buyer, did something stupid, right? Let's say I went and made a big purchase during our transaction. That earnest money now goes to the seller and our transaction ends, but I lose 5,000. Does that make sense?
I see.
Right. So let's say your mortgage is 340. So the balance of your purchase price, whenever you get down to this balance number, it should be 0.00. This should also be 0.00. Fill in all the information here, because this purchase price should be broken down in between these two numbers here. So this is the purchase price, right? 10,000 down payment. The mortgage is 340, gets me at 350, right? So now, here, this is what I was talking about, the initial deposit, right? To be paid by the buyer to the listing broker, the buyer, usually it's the buyer's attorney you would give your additional deposit to. And then we would set a date for it, right? But we don't need this. We're only doing an additional deposit. So the additional deposit is going to be due on our closing date. So typically, this is an estimate that you're going to do for your closing date. Typically, I estimate my closing date's about a month away. It's about 30 days out. So today's the 28th. I'm going to look at a calendar and I'm going to see what the 28th is for the next month. Does it fall on a weekend?
If we pay the additional deposit on the closing date, then how different is it from the down payment? The purpose of additional deposit is to make sure that they understand that we are committed to this process. So shouldn't that come on the conclusion of AR?
What, the additional deposit?
Yeah.
No, because this is the down payment for your mortgage. So it's not something that's given to the buyer or to anyone. It's given to your mortgage company, to your lender. So it's not a deposit, like it's not the earnest money deposit. So it doesn't work the same way. The additional deposit is just the amount of money your down payment, basically. That's all that is.
Oh, okay. So you're calling down payment as additional deposit in the contract here.
Right. And in the contract, it would be known as additional deposit. When all actuality, it's just your down payment on your mortgage. I know, a little confusing, right?
No, I got it. That's okay. It's just that there are different, like I've seen different processes of this. Obviously, some people do it in a different way, and some people do it in another way. So yeah, good to see, good to learn.
Okay. So we're gonna look on a calendar. We're gonna see that the 28th of next month is actually falls on a Saturday. So I'm gonna push it to that Monday. So that's gonna be October 30th is gonna be my estimated closing date. 23, right? We don't have anything in escrow, so we don't have to worry about this. We're gonna come down here to our mortgage situation, and we're gonna say our principal amount is 340. 00. The term of our mortgage, it's a 30-year mortgage. It's a conventional, right? And you don't have to worry about like this part here, like you don't know that part. How many monthly, with monthly payments based on a blank year payment schedule. Who knows? 10-year, 5-year, how many years? Who cares? That part doesn't matter. This part matters. The 30 years, the term of the mortgage, the principal amount, and what the mortgage type is. All this other stuff is pretty much optional. The written mortgage commitment must be delivered to seller's agent, who is a listing broker identified as Section 30, and seller's attorney if applicable, no later than, what should this date be? Evidence of mortgage commitment date. Anybody care to tell me?
Closing date?
Closing date, absolutely. Should absolutely be your closing date, because this is the day where your mortgage commitment must be delivered to the seller's agent. It has to be delivered by the closing date. So good job. So we're going to put that there. Now the balance of the purchase price.
Sorry, one more question. It's
ahead.
going to the seller's agent or the seller himself?
Say that again.
This mortgage commitment, that's going to the seller's agent or the seller himself?
No. It goes to the seller's attorney. So I didn't read the whole thing. Delivered to seller's agent, who is a listing broker identified in Section 30, and seller's attorney. has to have the mortgage commitment by that date.
Okay.
Right. Balance of purchase price, if there was one. So so let's just say, for example, that there was a balance of the purchase price, right? Let's say their mortgage was only for $330. They only can put down 10,000, so now they have 10,000 left to pay, right? And that's the balance of their purchase price. That is going to be identified here. Payment of the purchase price shall be made at closing, right? So we're going to put our closing date. I don't know why all that's popping up. Our closing date. Why am I 30/23? So that would be by our closing date, he needs to pay the rest of the 10,000 so that we can be cleared to close, right? So that's where that would come in if we were going to do it with the balance of the purchase price. And remember that this money comes out of pocket. This is not part of the mortgage, right? So if he were to do that, right, you would need to see proof of funds from your buyer to make sure that they have the 10 grand in order to pay the additional, pay the rest of the purchase price by the closing date, right? So then you want to read through all this stuff. We're not going to do all that. It takes too long. So items that are excluded from the sale, right? Which are basically whatever it says on the listing. So we're just going to put here per listing. That's it. Why we put per listing? Because all the things that are excluded from the sale are already in the listing, right? Are already on the MLS. They already been talked about what they are. So we can put per listing here because we already saw what they were, right? We can't list all of them that things are excluded from the sale, but we can say per listing, per the listing, these are the things were excluded from the sale. So we can totally do that. Okay, dates and performances. Buyer selects blank as clothing agency, basically the title company. So you would put in whatever title company you're using. So let's say we're using our title company for our office, Visionary Abstract. Visionary Abstract, okay. Then we have to work on getting our certificate of occupancy. So usually the sellers will get the certificate of occupancy and zoning compliance. Zoning compliance is only for builders. Certificate of occupancy as if you're actually living in the property. So we want to, if we had to get it, what we would do is call the county clerk's office, right, of the township that we're in and ask them for a certificate of occupancy form and see how they do it. Do they do an inspection? Do they do a seller's inspection, meaning the seller does the inspection himself and just, signs an oath saying that everything's truthful in what they're explaining? And how much, and is there a fee required for a certificate of occupancy? So these are questions that we should start to find out once we get our contract accepted, right? Once we get our offer accepted, you want to get to work immediately on figuring out the certificate of occupancy. You also want to find out about a fire inspection as well. Like I said, typically, if the sellers don't take care of this, then the buyer takes care of it. But most of the time, the sellers will take care of the certificate of occupancy and the fire inspection. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, any municipal assessments? We have not been aware of any municipal assessments, meaning that there aren't any improvements that haven't been improvements that have been approved by the municipal. So meaning that you may have like bad coding, or you may have unconfirmed assessments, or you just have like things that haven't been completed according to the municipal's county county clerk. There we go. Meaning that your house is good to go. You're free and clear. You haven't been made aware of any such municipal assessments and anything like that. So your house is good to go. If you have been aware, that there are any municipal assessments, then you would then call the county clerk's office again and speak to them and get some clarity on what is going on as far as this property. The seller's agent will also take care of this too. But you, as the buyer's agent, can do your due diligence just to give your buyer some peace of mind and say that it's not that big of a deal. They're only this they're dealing with or that they're dealing with, and the seller is getting it taken care of, right? Because our biggest thing is keeping our clients with a peace of mind. You want to keep them at ease at all times. You want to take all the stress, right? We want to be stressed out, not our clients. Okay, so then, like I said, you're going to read through all this stuff. We don't have to do anything here. There are no tenancies, so this would be for a rental, right? So we're not using any of this stuff here, so that's not applicable, right? Now, is this home built prior to 1978, right? Yes or no? If applicable, then you would need the lead-based paint, agreement signed by your buyer that agrees to the possibility of lead-based paint in the home because it was built before 1978. Then by then they would also any lead would pop up in a home inspection as well, because they do a lead test for homes that are built before 1978 to make sure that there aren't any. But if the home is built before 1978, you automatically have to always give your seller that agreement. So let's say it's not applicable at this time. Okay, this is going to talk about your inspections. We don't have to fill anything here. Rental dwelling inspections as well. Port of entry treatment systems. This is for like a water treatment system. If they haven't, it's used to remove contaminants from water and stuff like that. So let's say they don't have that. They don't have a cesspool. Right, so we put no to that. Seller agrees that prior to the closing, that is sole and expense seller shall be, right. So you want to read over this stuff so you know what you're clicking, right? Got to read over it so you know. So that's all still cesspool stuff. Inspection contingency clause, right? This is very important to read over because it just says basically that your the seller it puts in the words like buyer and seller acknowledge and agree that because the purchase of a home is one of the most significant investments a person can make in a lifetime, all aspects of their transaction require considerable analysis and investigation by buyer before closing title to the property, which means they have all right for a home inspection, right? To inspect all areas of the property, to inspect all backgrounds for, liens, for everything. It gives them permission as a buyer to do so right here in this section. So this also gives them, if they needed to do radon testing, right? If they needed to test the ground for any radon and for any contaminants, right? That could be coming up from any public work pipes. Maybe there's a hole in a pipe somewhere underground. Maybe there's a septic tank that someone just built over, right? That's still in the ground, right? That's maybe leaking and causing and leaking raw sewage into your ground, which is a terrible hazard to have. So this just gives them confirmation to do so, to do any types of testing that they may need and things like that. They can also test for infestations, right? And wood-boring insects. Are there any termites and things like that? And here's your buyer's right to inspections. The seller's responsibility to cure any things that come up, right? If they're living in a flood hazard area, are they do they have flood insurance? Has there been a flood? They may cancel the contract within 10 calendar days after attorney review is completed if the contract is timely disapproved by an attorney as provided in the attorney review clause, right? So they can rescind this whole contract if they find out, number one, that you're in a flood area, and number two, if you didn't disclose that to them, right? If they had no idea they were going to be living in a flood area, let's say you didn't have flood insurance, you never looked at the line. Let's say the seller just never looked at the lines and noticed that they were in a flood area. and noticed they were in a flood zone. And maybe they just, brushed off when someone asked them about, getting flood insurance and things like that. So if a buyer comes around and they find out that they're in a flood area and they don't want it, they can totally back out the contract with no problem, no issue, right? Qualifications of inspectors, you want to use qualified inspectors only, right? They're going to check the water quality. This is about Megan's Law and how we're not allowed to give our buyers any information about convicted sex offenders in an area. We're not allowed to do so. They can do their own due diligence and find that information, but we are not allowed to give that to them. Okay? So this is regarding off-site conditions. So let's say you move in next to a construction zone, right? Or you move next to a junkyard or something like that. So these are off-site conditions that which may affect the value of your property because you're so close to this junkyard or construction zone or this mechanic that works from 5 in the morning and he's making all types of noise all day and stuff like that. So you want to know about these things before you have your buyer put in an offer for a home that may not get any value later on because they live next to some off-site condition, right? So this is for air and quality zoning, right? These are the airports, right? These are all the airports, and these are the municipalities where they are. So this is just giving you a heads up on where the air quality may be a little bit different, right? Because of the airports, right? Because all that jet engine exhaust that's there and stuff like that. So you figure the closer you would live to one of these airports, it kind of hurts your value on your home a little bit, right? It helps it and it hurts it at the same time. Because you're close to an airport, it's a good thing. But because you're close to an airport, it's a bad thing, right? You kind of get the correlation there because you're close to mass transit, right? But then your air quality is a little, and then you can't fly anything in the air near your house, right? You can't have a drone over your house or nothing like that because you're going to be in a no-fly zone. So there's all types of different little things that you want to just make sure your buyers are aware of when you're going through this contract with them. Right? So you're going to read through all this stuff. This is about concerning insurance, maintenance and condition of the property. You want to make sure it's in good condition. It's subject to ordinary wear and tear, right? That's normal. Normal wear and tear is fine, right? But you want to make sure there aren't things that are latent, right? Latent defects, holes in the ceiling, things you can't see, things like that. And with this agreement, the seller promises that the home shall be broom clean condition and free of debris as of the closing. So the house should be completely spotless, right? Because right before closing, you're going to do what's known as a walkthrough, a final walkthrough. And you're going to look at everything in the home, right? Was this scratch on the wall when you first came here before? Because damage happens when people move out, right? So let's say you went to the home that you were purchasing and it was still occupied. It wasn't a vacant home, right? It was still occupied and they had to move out before the closing. So of course, when you go to the home first and view it, it's occupied. So everything is in the way. Everything is still there. Now you go back to the home for the final walkthrough. Now you can see the scratches on the floor. Now you can see this that was behind the couch over there. Now you can see all this stuff that was, that was being hidden by the furniture and the cabinets and things like that. So now you can say to them, okay, well, I need this, and this done prior to closing. And you can totally do that. You have all right to do so to make sure that the house is completely what you want it to be before you close, right? So this is what that is. Initial and final walkthrough. So any adjustments at closing, right, shall be seller shall pay for the preparation of the deed, the realty transfer fee, lien discharge fees, if any, and 1/2 of the title company charges for disbursements and attendance allowed by the Commissioner of Insurance. But all searches title insurance premium, and other conveyances expenses are to be paid for by the buyer, right? Which means the buyer has his own closing costs that he must incur and pay as well. So the seller is only paying for the transaction stuff, right? They don't have necessarily a closing cost. So they're just paying a transfer fee. They're paying off they're paying for the title company to prepare their deed, right? And they're paying for the transfer. That's it. That's all the seller incurs. The buyer, on the other hand, has to pay for, they're also paying a transfer fee because it's getting transferred for them. They're also paying the preparation of the deed fee, right? Because it's on their end. The deed is being prepared for them. So they have to pay for that as well. And then they also have to pay their closing costs, which include the clearance of the title, looking for any liens on a home, and all the paperwork that the title company has to go through. So basically, you're paying for their services with your closing costs.
Lawrence,
Uh-huh.
yeah, who is responsible to prepare the deed? Is it the lawyer or the title company?
The title company prepares the deed. The lawyer is just going to make sure all the contracts and negotiations are taken care of and everyone agrees to everything so that the title company can prepare the deed and clear the house for close.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a failure of buyer or seller to close. So if the seller fails to close title to the property in accordance with this contract, buyer then may commence any legal or equitable action to which buyer may be entitled. Meaning the buyer can you can take a seller to civil court, right? Even if you didn't pay any money right away, but you spent your time, right? For pain and suffering, let's say, right? And you want the seller to pay you 10 grand because they didn't do what they were supposed to do on their end, right? They held up the deal. They may have not been responsive with the title company. They may have not been responsive with the attorney. You know, who knows? It could have been any reason. And the same thing for the buyer. If the buyer fails to close title in accordance with this contract, seller then may commence an action for damages it has suffered, and in such case, the deposit money, right, the earnest monies paid on account of the purchase price shall be applied against such damages, meaning that the seller will get that $5,000 of earnest money, and the buyer gets nothing. The buyer is out 5,000 because the buyer did something in the process that made the deal fall apart. Like I said, maybe they did a huge purchase, right? Maybe they did something to affect their credit score. Maybe they maybe they weren't responsive to their lender and they couldn't get their mortgage approved. It could be anything, right? But whatever the situation is, they now forfeit that money, right? So this is just confirmation of our CIS. So we're going to declare our business relationship here, right, on this contract. So we are with, I'm just going to make this short. We are with KWCR, Keller Williams Cornerstone Realty. We are, my name, I'm spelling my own name wrong. Right? And we are operating as the buyer's agent, right? If more than one person is participating, right, then we would put them down here, right? If we're working with working with another agent, right, we will put them down as the buyer's agent. Or if we're working with a transaction broker, we can always add them here as well. But typically we would just add ourselves. Down here is where the listing agent is going to put their information in up here. Your information, because you're the participating firm, you're not the listing firm, you're not the listing agent, you're the participating agent. You're going to put your information in down here. You're going to also make sure you put your license number here. Make sure you put our office address, not your home address. This is all our office information here. Office telephone number. You want to make sure your phone number is here. Oh, that's going to change all that. Make sure your phone number is here. And your commission. So let's say the commission is 2.5 percent minus $100, right? So down here, we're going to disclose that the buyer seller is a real estate licensee. Is the buyer seller real estate licensee? They could be, but let's say they're not. If they were, you would have to put that person's information here, right? The buyer's agent, seller's agent, whatever they are, you would have to put their informations here. But they wouldn't be any part of the transaction, right? They're not a buyer or a seller. They're basically just an agent that you're just disclosing that they are a real estate agent. So disclosure is very, very important in any situation. You want to make sure you're giving all the information, because if someone finds out something that you're withholding out themselves, then you just look very distrusting, right? You look dishonest, right? They can't trust your word. It just makes you look bad. So you want to make sure, like, for example, if you were, let's say you're selling your relative's house, you want to disclose that. Hey, this is actually my uncle's house I'm selling, right? Or in the MLS listing, you want to put relative of the agent, right? You want to disclose that so that you don't look like you're doing some type of inside dealings, right? Where you're making your seller do things because they're your family member, right? Because they're going to listen to you. They're your family. So if someone put an offer in at 350, you say to your family, oh, well, I think we can get 385 for it, being spiteful, and you have them put a counter offer in at 385, that's some insider stuff, and it's just very frowned upon. You don't want to have those types of relationships. You want to run your business the same for every person that you deal with, right? There shouldn't be a difference because you're related to them or not related to them. So this is a attorney review clause. This is just saying that the attorney is going to study the contract, right? They're counting the time, which is 3 days from the delivery of the signed contract. They have 3 days in order to read the contract, go through everything, right? They have to give a notice of disapproval if they don't agree with something of the contract to the buyer's attorney, right? Any notices shall be certified mail, fax, email, right? And recognized overnight carrier or electronic document, meaning like DocuSign. The contract should not be assigned without the written consent of the seller, right? Which means the seller has to sign. This means that the buyer may not transfer to anyone else's buyer's rights under this contract to purchase the property, meaning that this contract isn't transferable by the buyer to, let's say, a family member, right? It's only binding to the person that signed it. Right, so these are talking about electronic signatures, how New Jersey allowed that. They made a transaction act, right, and allow that to happen now. Right, corporate resolutions. If the buyer or seller is a corporate or other entity, this person signing below on behalf of an entity represents all required corporate resolutions. So if you were working, let's say, with an LLC, right, and they wanted to sign this as their LLC company, they can totally do that, right? They can totally do that, no problems, right? So this is just saying that they're allowed to do so. The entire agreement, parties are liable. The contract contains the entire agreement of the parties. No representation have been made by any of the parties, the brokers, or its salesperson, except as set forth in this contract, meaning that there are no other representations for the buyer or the seller outside the people who know about this contract, meaning I can't go get another attorney once this is signed, right? The attorney that I'm currently working with that is going to get this contract, I can't work outside of that, right? Even if I don't sign an agreement with that attorney, I still can't do so because this contract says I can't. Okay. So this is an addenda. So basically, if you can put any one of these, like let's say it has the lead-based paint disclosure, right? Let's say it has a swimming pool, they have solar panels. So these are things that are basically you're just adding to the contract to say that these things do exist there and they are attached into this contract, right? So that's all attached. So if the FHA, a VA loan, right? A property sale contingency, meaning that the buyer's waiting for their home to be sold so that they can purchase this next house, right? So is there any sales contingencies, right? Is coronavirus one of your things? I don't, still not 100% why this is here now. That's a new thing. But I think it's mostly for showings and open houses. So these are any additional contractual provisions, like any credits that that the seller might want to give for anything that they might know that's wrong with the house and stuff like that. You're going to put all those extra provisions down here, but you don't know those, so you can't put anything here. So this is going to stay blank. And down here, you're going to have your buyer sign and date, and your sellers are going to sign and date once they accept the offer. So this is the offer, right? When you put an offer in, this is what you're going to send. This contract, the contract of sale. So you have to do this every single time someone wants to put an offer in. You're going to find one of these and you're going to fill it out, send it to your buyer to sign, and then you take it from there. Everyone got that?
Yeah.
Lawrence,
Yes.
I think I'm confused with the date you put on the mortgage commitment. For me, I always accept like a week before the closing, because how will I be able to know if the mortgage is committed to, the lender is committed to give loan to that person, because that's the assurance that definitely this person is getting the loan. So that's why I'm confused. You said the
Right.
closing date.
So this is an estimated, this isn't our closing date. This is just what we're estimating, right? This is just me going off my own time frame of typically how long this takes. I would say it takes about 30 days. So my estimated closing date and my mortgage approval are going to be about 30 days out, because we have to go through attorney review, inspections, appraisal, all that stuff before we can get into the mortgage approval process. So the mortgage gets approved like right before closing, like
Yes.
right before the closing.
Yeah.
Is when all that stuff happens. So these dates are just estimates, right? I'm just estimating. This date, the mortgage company never sees this date, right? They don't know anything about this date, right? They don't know that I put that this is our closing date. They're going to learn that
They
afterwards.
don't know. I thought we normally
No,
submit the
listen.
contracts.
Right. Right. So they know about this date afterwards, right? So when I'm doing this initial contract, right, before it gets sent out to anyone, this is just an estimate. So the mortgage and the title company can say that we estimate our closing date for November. They can say November 10th if they wanted to, right? They don't necessarily have to go by my number, and typically they don't. This is just my estimate to show the seller that we want a quick close, right? That's all this is. So this date isn't concrete, right? This date isn't going to be
But
law.
it's not going to be the closing date, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
what I'm saying.
this is just an estimate. I'm estimating what the closing date would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because
Right.
when you said the closing date, that's where it got me confused.
Right. So this is just an estimate, right? I'm estimating when the closing date would be based
Okay.
off of just my knowledge of how long these transactions usually take. And closings typically take anywhere between 30 to 45 days.
Yes.
So I may be 10 days early, right?
Yes.
So I have to wait for the title company to tell me when the closing is. I want the closing to be on the 30th, but the title company can say, oh, we won't be able to close until November 3rd, right? And that's fine. I would have to do whatever the title company allows, because let's say the title company, maybe they're going on vacation or something, because these things, it's happened to me before, where the main person that was working on the transaction went on vacation and we had to push back the closing date.
Do you have to do an addendum when the date changes?
Most of the time, no. But if the closing date changes to, let's say, like 2 weeks after your estimated closing date, then yes. But if it's like a couple days, then no. But typically it's going to be around this where I'm at, right? It's typically going to be around the 30th to the 1st, 3rd of November, right? Within that week, because this 30th is on a Monday, so they can close on that Friday if they wanted to, and I wouldn't have to change this at all. It's within the same week.
Okay.
Okay.
Lawrence, I think I just got confused at when are we filling out this document? You go to show a property, the buyer wants to buy the property,
Mm-hmm.
but then maybe later in that day there's another showing and that buyer wants to buy the property. At what point are we filling out this contract of sale so that our buyer is actually the buyer?
So we're going to fill this out once your buyer decides that they want to put an offer in on the house, right? So you take them, let's say you take them on, let's say you spend a day, right? And you take them to 3 different houses, right? And they say to you, I want to put an offer in on all 3.
Mm-hmm.
That means you would need to fill out 3 different ones of these,
Oh, okay.
right?
But then also there may be another agent that showed 3 buyers one buyer the same 3 properties. So there may be multiple contracts of sale on the same properties. What I'm asking. That can
Absolutely.
happen. Oh, okay. I was getting
Absolutely.
confused.
Yes, that's what we call multiple offers.
And then the seller is going to review all of these contracts of sale and then come back and say, I want to accept this one.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
There will be only one offer from one buyer to be
Right.
specific, but different offers, Natasha.
Right.
Okay.
Right. One offer from each buyer, not like multiple offers from the same buyer.
Yes. No, that part I understand. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, Lawrence, I've seen a couple of listings that they will tell you that they don't want you to send in contracts. They just want a page offer.
Right.
Some of my listings, people have sent in like a page. They don't even send in contract. They just send a page.
Right. They'll just
And-
send this page in. Right. Some people will just send this page in and wait for the buyer to wait for the offer to get accepted if they do so. So you can do that too. You don't have to send the whole thing. This gets sent when we get the offer accepted and they have to sign everything, right? They have to put their initials, seller's initials, buyer's initials on every single one of these pages. Right?
Okay. I think that's why I was getting confused. I didn't realize you had to do the whole document just to submit the offer.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So you could actually just submit that first page.
yes, you could submit just this one page, right? This page right here, because this
Mm-hmm.
is where your offer is.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Okay.
offer is going to be here. So everything else, right? Because I would send this page too, because I would want them to know that this is a conventional loan or a cash or whatever it's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I would want them to know my closing date, that I want a quick close. This shows that I want a fast close when I'm 30 days out. So I would send this page, I would send this page with it as well. I typically send the whole thing. I've seen agents send just this page, but I send the whole thing.
Right.
Why? Because I want them to know all my terms. I want them to know everything. I want them to know the title company I'm going to use, right? Because they may say that, oh, I don't like that title company, or I love that title company. They do fast closes, right? So I want them to know everything that I'm agreeing to, right? If I have any everything that I agree to in the contract, right? I'm cool with everything that they're saying, basically. I have my declaration done, I have my information here, I want them to know where this is coming from, who this is coming from, everything that I agree to and stuff like that. So I usually typically send the entire contract, but again, to each his own. Everyone can run their business how they want to because we're not regulated by anyone other than the real estate commission. So you are more than able to just send this one page if that's what you wanted to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we're going to save and close. Oh, you're going to make me do. Okay. Happy. We're gonna save and close. It does. And then that puts us in our exclusive buyer agreement. Like I said, this is optional. You do not have to use this document. It is not required at all. So this is just confirming your business relationship, right? Does buyer have a business relationship with another broker? That's very important to know. Yes or no? You're going to ask them that question. Yes or no? Are you working with another agent? They may say yes. If they say yes, what happens? They can't sign this. And you can still work with them. You can send them deals and everything else like that. But if they're under contract with someone else, then you have to stop. You have to step away and not work with them. Right? So let's say no, they don't. Right? And I'm declaring, right, my business relationship with them as buyer's agent and disclose dual agent if the opportunity arises. This agency agreement shall commence on today, 9/28/23, right? And shall expire at midnight on the 28th day of March, right? So there's your time frame right there, right? This says that they will be working with me exclusively as their agent for this amount of time. There's your term right there, right? Any brokerage fees. We usually don't charge our buyers any brokerage fees, right? Because the sellers pay commission. So what are your buyer's agent's duties? To use due diligence in a search to locate properties, right? Which is acceptable to buyer. Use professional knowledge and skills to assist buyer to negotiate for the purchase of such property and assist the buyer throughout the transaction and to represent buyer's best interests. This is the biggest part of this. To represent the buyer's best interests. You are contractually obligated to represent their best interests. That's what they get by signing this, right? Because let's say, for example, you were in it just for yourself, right? And you're going to have them look at houses that are just completely at the top of their budget. You're not showing them any other houses other than the ones that are at the top of their budget, the ones they can, right? Their budget is 400,000. You have them looking for homes, right? That are right 395, 400,000, right? We're looking at homes that are right there. We're not trying to do any due diligence to maybe find something that they really want that could be cheaper, right? What if they found a house that was 50,000 cheaper than that? But you're not showing them those homes. So here you're contractually obligated to keep their best interests at heart, even though we have our fiduciary duties to them, that we took, within our code of ethics. This gives them a little bit more ease to say that he's contractually obligated to represent my best interests, right? And what's the buyer's duty? The buyer's duty is to provide accurate and relevant personal information to buyer's agent regarding buyer's financial ability to purchase real estate, which means they have to give you a pre-approval letter. They have to give you proof of funds. They have to do their own due diligence to make sure you have everything you need in order to service them properly and get them the purchase that they want, right? So this all that just says. It even has something about dual agency in here as well. And like I said, this isn't a requirement. This is just something that you would push, present to them alongside the CIS, which is just confirming our business relationship contractually. That's all. So everybody got that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
How do you handle it? I noticed in that contract, it put the area, I think, that you were going to search in. I forgot the exact wording, but how do you handle it if you have a client that wants to search in an area, move to an area that you don't have access to that MLS?
So within our office, we have access. Where did it say that? Now you got me looking.
I thought it said You would search and, right, is that it? Go up a little bit. A little
You mean
further
down
up.
here? Use diligence
No,
and then search to
no,
locate property?
further up.
Further up.
Scroll up.
Scroll up.
Right there.
Oh, right here?
For the purpose of searching or locating and purchase real estate in the following. So it's saying that you're looking in Princeton Township.
Yeah, but you can leave this blank. This is optional.
Okay, but that
Look-
just made me think of my question. Like, what if
What if you were looking somewhere else?
right, they wanna go look in, Bergen
Right.
County.
So yeah, no, that's optional. You don't have to put whatever municipal you're looking into. That's optional. So we can look wherever we want to.
But how do I actually help them if I don't have access to that MLS?
So we have access to every MLS in New Jersey. You just need to
Okay.
get the account information, like the login info, basically, which we provide. So the only time you need to pay for an MLS yourself is if you have a listing, right? If you, let's say you have, like we have a Flex MLS, right, which is for Monmouth County, right? I can search on there all day long, but the moment I want to put a listing in, I have to buy my own because that's in Raj's name. The MLSs are in Raj's name. So anything you do on there is going to fall under Raj. If you want to do a showing time schedule, it would go to Raj. It wouldn't go to you because that's not your MLS.
Okay.
But you're more than able to search on there and to find homes, and you can send them to yourself and then send them to your buyer.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All
How
right.
do we get that? I don't know we have that.
I didn't know that either.
How do we get what access?
Yes.
You would ask IO. IO can send you the login information. Let's say you go on, or you can ask Raj. But I would say ask IO. They'll send you the login information for whichever MLS that you're looking into, and you can use it.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I thought you
Yeah.
had to pay.
No, you can use it to search, but you can't use it to list.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So, and then we'll have our CIS here as well. And we've already done one of these. We all know how to do a CIS now, right? So we're going to be for buyers and tenants. Which one of these boxes should I click?
The third one.
The third one? I'm the seller's agent?
Oh, sorry, buyer's
The
agent.
fourth one.
The fourth one. Why the fourth one?
Because in case that opportunity arises, you are a dual agent.
Absolutely. We want to be a dual agent on everything that we sign. If this box is on any contract that you see, click this box or this box, whatever it says, dual agency. Always click dual agency. Don't ever not click dual agency, because if it's not in the contract, you can't do it. Also, if your seller or buyer doesn't agree to you doing dual agency, you can't do it. So keep that in mind as well. So we can save and close. However long that takes. And we're going to create another envelope. Create envelope. I'm going to send it to buyer 1. Continue. And make sure all our information here that we're going to send, right? Make sure the subject line, you can enter a message here if you wanted to. You don't have to. I usually don't, because there's no point. They're just signing a document. And we want to scroll down and make sure that all of these, right, are where they're supposed to be, right? Make sure that's there, right? Because DocuSign does a good job with doing this, but we have to make sure that the job is done, right? That all our information is where it's supposed to be, right? We have this here with a buyer will initial, right? And we'll make sure all our documents are good to go. So we're gonna scroll, make sure this is good to go, right? That's good to go. Like I said, DocuSign does a good job on it now, but before, when I first used DocuSign, I had to sit here. Can you imagine, right? Let's go back to this. I want to show you how I used to do it real fast. I used to have to go on here, do this, slide this over there, right? As many times I needed to, right? And then when it came down to doing the initials, oh my God. Used to have to go here, bring this over here, make this smaller, put it here, and then go down the page and do that a million other times. It's ridiculous. So you guys have it easy now. So once we figure out that everything is good to go here, then we're gonna send it. Okay, once it's sent, then we're gonna see this, right? It says waiting for others to sign. So once I go on and sign it, then you'll see, here, I'll go to another room where it's signed. What do I have assigned? Do I have one here? Envelopes. So once it's signed, then it'll look like this. It'll say completed, right? And then you're able to go on and send the offer in to your clients, and also go back to DocuSign. I mean, go back to Command and put in your contracts under contract, right? You also want to make sure, oh, I didn't show you that part either. Let me go back real fast. Also, you want to download now this is for buyers and sellers. You're going to go in here, go back to documents. You're going to go in here. You're going to go to DocuSign forms. Going to go to, you can either go to rental or sales documents, and you'll see, where is it? Or it might be under hours. You can go under KW 705, and you're going to see our commission statement. Now, this commission statement says buyer, but it's also the same one you're going to use for a seller as well. It's the same commission statement. And I'll show you what that looks like.
I don't know why they can't change that so that we have separate one.
What, that it doesn't say buyer?
It only says buyer, but you use, I mean, if they can have the seller wants to.
Right. We use it for both.
I know.
Right. So yeah, you're right though. You're right. I don't know why they don't do stuff. So sales price here, right? And we're gonna put in our commission, which is 2.5% minus $100. Anybody can do some quick math? Which means our commission off of this deal is $8,650, right? That's paid to the office, right? And you're going to send this to yourself. You're going to date it. 9/28, 23. And you're going to DocuSign this to you're going to send this to yourself so you can sign it, right? And then you're going to, once you do that, then you're going to go back to Command and load in all your documents. Once that saves and close. Then you can go back here, and all your documents that are in your room are going to pop up. Well, they should pop up. I don't know why this doesn't do that for me. Oh, that's why. There it goes. So hit this little tab over here, hit include DocuSign forms, and then you'll be able to see all the documents in your room. So we're going to add our, where is it? Whatever, we'll get to that later. So you're just going to add all your documents here, right? A seller's disclosure declination, that's if they don't want to sign a seller's disclosure from the listing side, you would have them sign a seller's disclosure declination. You will also have them sign a home warranty disclosure, right? The dual agency, contract of sale, this is all for your buyer stuff. You would hit submit to MC, and then you're good to go. But you would only send in that offer after it gets accepted. Once it's signed by the seller, then you would submit it to the office. You can't submit an offer that's not signed by anybody other than the buyer because it hasn't been accepted. So it doesn't make sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, that will conclude today's Transaction Thursday. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No, that wasn't a convincing no.
I was looking at my notes. I think you answered them all.
Okay. No problem. Yeah, so I hope that was very helpful. Ooh, I'm hitting buttons and stuff. I hope that was very helpful for everyone, and you guys have a better understanding of the process, the contracts that are needed, and how to fill them out. I want you guys to take some time today, if you can, and go on there and read through the contracts, because you have to know them. You have to know what they are. You have to know the wording, the information. It's very important that you know what you have your buyers and sellers signing. It's extremely important because they're going to have questions for you, and you have to be prepared for those questions that they're going to ask you. And if you're not familiar with the documents, you can't answer the questions because you don't understand them yourself. So I implore you all to take some time out today or when you can and start messing around, start filling out the documents, right? Get used to doing that. Get used to filling out these documents. So just go on DocuSign and fill it out for yourself. Make a fake, like how I just did, right? Make examples, right? For yourself, and just play around with it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
everyone. It's been great spending time with you as usual. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day and are working toward those goals, right?
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day, guys.
Okay, bye.